UIC. Freedom the people of need. Hell yeah. Freedom the people of need. Yeah, yeah. Freedom the people of want. Freedom the people of need. Yeah, yeah. Freedom the people of want. Freedom the people of need. Yeah, yeah. Freedom the people of want. Freedom the people of need. Yeah, yeah. Real man a road. Now bow wolf in a tree grand a road. Now bow down to no demon a road. UIC when you see man a road, me say yeah. Real man a road. Now bow wolf in a tree grand a road. Now bow down to no demon a road. UIC when you see man a road. Ready fi broke every chain. The one that free up the people, levitate. Jamaica member, you ever great. I fi burn up the fire upon every snake. Me give thanks in every way. God still a look down once see we safe. I see around the road long time. GLP and PMP I sell we out. Still I do the test even though we know the end result. If them coulda kill with them catch we and hang we know. No force no coercion, me freedom in a step. No one fi rob we and kill we and feel them I go make it out. You know see the leeches, you know see the hands of the devil when him sleep with. You know see the leeches, you know see the hands of the devil when him sleep with. Yeah, real man a road. Now bow wolf in a tree grand a road. Now bow down to no demon a road. UIC when you see man a road, me say yeah. Real man a road. Now bow wolf in a tree grand a road. Now bow down to no demon a road. UIC when you see man a road. Yeah, me drop the graphing now, and then I laughing now. What them talking about? Everything cement and we not talking growth. We make an intellectuals are marching now. Them couldn't get the last laugh, no them laughing loud. We don't need the small talk when we talking, bro. We don't need them 5 grand, we need to part them now. Long time GLP and PMP I sell we out. Still I do the test even though we know the end result. If them coulda kill with them catch we and hang we know. No force no coercion, me freedom in a step. No one fi rob we and kill we and feel them I go make it out. You know see the leeches, you know see the hands of the devil when him sleep with. You know see the leeches, you know see the hands of the devil when him sleep with. Yeah, real man a road. Now bow wolf in a tree grand a road. Now bow down to no demon a road. UIC when you see man a road, me say yeah. Real man a road. Now bow wolf in a tree grand a road. Now bow down to no demon a road. UIC when you see man a road, yeah. Real man a road. Now bow wolf in a tree grand a road. Now bow down to no demon a road. UIC when you see man a road, me say yeah. Real man a road. Now bow wolf in a tree grand a road. Now bow down to no demon a road. UIC when you see man a road. Hell yeah.
Welcome to another episode of UIC Liverpool TV. So the president is going to be interviewed today by CBN TV. The president is going to be interviewed by CBN TV. So I'm trying to see if I can get the stream up on the screen here. So let's see. Let's run a test and see if it works. If it works, we're good to go. Okay, so here is the stream, which can we freeze it up? Let's see here. Can we get this to work? Joshua, I see you there in the comments. Daniel Burke, I see you there. Welcome.
November 10th, 2021. The one drop
And you guys, let me know if you heard that audio. Please let me know if you heard it.
8.
Let me know if you heard that audio, guys. All right. So hopefully we don't have any issues with the stream. Even though it's kind of freezing up right now. You're not hearing me properly. Let me know if you guys are hearing me. Let me know if you're hearing me. I'm hearing that my audio is bad.
And said, thank you very
I don't know if you guys can hear me. I'm hearing my audio is bad. You know, okay. So I see that you guys are hearing me. So let's try this. Let me know if you guys are hearing this clearly.
to see him anymore in West Indies colors. You can bet your bottom dollar that we will see him in the rich IPL and other domestic cricket leagues. We will miss that smile. He said, do what you love, and you will never work a day in your life. He is certainly wish the
Can
very
you
best as he steps off into the sun.
can you guys hear that clearly? Let me know if you can. Can you hear it clearly? We're doing a test here, so we want to make sure that the screen goes through properly. Somewhat better? Okay, good. All right. The screen. Let me go and move it. Okay. So they'll be on soon. So welcome, Lataya. I see you there. Welcome, Richard Grant Chilani. Welcome, Mark Mead, Fox Strike, Daniel. Welcome, you there. Um, let's see who else here. Francine Lawrence, welcome. Omar. Omar, you see, I say that everyone to look up to you. Don't run, man. Don't run away. Don't run away. Don't run away. Here, right here, man. We want you to take part in this stream right here. All right. So when the stream starts, I'll put it up on the screen. Okay. I think we're on now. Canada. That's not the model of political exchange. Big gangs serve to intimidate opponents, mobilize votes, and recruit future leaders for both politics and the civil underworld. A number of colors have growth subject to their information context as well, tracking its emergence from the political climate of the 1940s. This evening, we explore the nexus between politics and gangs. To join us are Joseph Patterson, founder and president of the United Independent Congress, and Mike Williams, chairman of the National Democratic Movement and political company. Good evening, gentlemen, and welcome. Happy to be here again. Well, we have moved, it would seem, beyond the traditional character politics. However, what are the legacies that we have been left from the political violence of the 1980s? Well, left from the political hierarchy. So what are the legacies that we have left? The legacies are simple. So our prime minister, who is a competent politician and rebel leader of the opposition, who is the same. That has not really changed much from the 1980s to now. We can look at, with the exception of P.J. Patterson, all the prime ministers have been Garrison politicians. Right. And what responsibilities do you think
that the Cold War has to bear on that?
Well, the Garrison politics is alive and well and fueled mainly by our low educational achievements, right? Because if you look at the 12 to 15 Garrison, depending on how you analyze the constituencies, the poorest constituencies are where the garrisons exist.
So,
All right, and look at the two most powerful garrisons in Jamaica, West Kingston and West Central St. Andrew. I would still say that the poorness, despite the achievements of Mr. Seaga in Tivoli, the Denham Town area of the constituency is really, really poor. I was born in Denham Town in 1946. I'm telling you my age. And Denham Town has not changed much since then.
right, well, the number of garrison communities have obviously declined over time. We have moved from the Cold War, the cocaine, to now it's an issue of the scammers. So where are we today when it comes to the intersection of politics and gangs, and what can be proven in the respect of that intersection, sir?
Well, I don't agree with you that the garrisons have declined.
What?
Right? As a matter of fact, I remember an MP, and I won't call her name but she said it herself, a recent MP for the People's National Party in St. Catherine. She said, no labor right can come into this area. How you think that is enforced?
Well, perhaps she was speaking from a political standpoint.
Of course she was. But the point I'm asking you, how do you think that is enforced?
Could just be from an ideological.
From an intellectual. My brother,
Well,
I think that's one of the problems that we have in Jamaica.
So we
is
do have to go
our
to a break. So
intellectuals, don't want to face reality.
I was saying from an ideological standpoint. Let's go to a break. We'll continue right after this.
So
It's
mute this
Robbie.
for a second. Okay. So we are here because the UIC president is on. Steve is TV right now, but he's there virtually. So TVM just took a break to talk about what's the sport. But until then, let me greet you guys in the comment section. Welcome, Francine, I see you there. Malcolm X, welcome. Chloe Black is saying all this government is focused on, it's turning out it's turning Jamaica into China, take away our rights and put us into a police state with their one world order. And what they're trying to create, Chloe, is some sort of a new some kind of society. I see that they're having some difficulties. Oh, okay. So the president is saying that they might be having some difficulties hearing him on the stream. That's probably why they took that early break. The issue that they're having. So hopefully they get that sorted. Oh, yes, definitely. They're trying to create the kind of society where we have no rights. We have no rights in our own country, right? So I think they're coming back on now. Let's put it on the screen.
A potential nexus between politics and gangs. With us is Joseph Patterson, President of the United Independence Congress, and Michael Williams, the Chairman of the National Democratic Movement. Let's begin this segment with you, Mr. Patterson. What is the role of the gang in modern-day Jamaican politics? Has it changed from the 40s or the 80s?
Yeah, I think it has changed a lot historically. We have gone from where the politicians were directly involved in creating the garrison communities and fully supporting the gangs and being their primary lifeline, to a point where it shifted to the gangs getting pretty much the upper hand as they found other avenues for revenues through the drug trade. And they became more like the masters of the politicians. So now we have a very unusual relationship between the two, where the gangs are somewhat autonomous, but at the same time connected with and protected by the politicians, because they still play a key role in the political process in helping to bring home the vote. So as long as we have that tie between the two, the politician and the police are unable to do an effective job of protecting the Jamaican people. And the gangs continue to have a pretty strong hold on the communities. And as you can see, even now, having spent billions of dollars on the crime problem, the government continues to struggle to give us the promised security that we need. And so as long as we are trying to fix the problem by those who create it, we'll continue to have the problem.
If it is that we have, have gangs with being autonomous now, why is there still this link or perceived link between gangs and politicians? If they don't need them anymore, what's the link about?
So before, the link used to be the politician providing most of the financial support to gangs. Over time, it switched around and the gangs became a bit financially independent themselves, but wanting to also maintain their control over the political process. And so that link is still there. The two depend on each other, but it's not one-sided as it used to be. It's more a balanced relationship where the two are a bit of symbiotic or very dependent on each other for control. The gangs continue to help with bringing in the votes. They continue to help with deciding whether or not a candidate can survive in an area. So the candidate who goes in many of these areas must negotiate with the gang leaders and maintain a certain diplomatic relations, if you will, in order to carry out the political aspect of the politician's activity and the gang leader carrying out their aspect of the relationship. So
is that what your party has had to do, negotiate with gangs when you send a candidate into an area?
Absolutely not. What we learn is from the citizens who tell us what is going on the ground. And of course, you see that in the whole political sphere. You can see what is going on. If you go to a community or a constituency, like whether it's in the inner cities of Kingston, it's very, very evident and very clear. The UIC remains the only party at this point which has stayed clear of joining in any form or shape with any gang leaders. But let's not be mistaken. The strong ties remain, and it's a very dangerous place out there. We have members of our team who have been stopped and harassed and told that they're not to come back in this area because it's controlled by so and so. So we have those difficulties out there still. But the good thing is the people, the mass of people, the Jamaican people are waking up, and that's why you see less participation in the voter process. And the UIC hopes to change that by bringing all of those persons now to install the UIC to fix the problem, which cannot be fixed by those who created it.
Right, but just let me get a quick comment from Mr. NDM. He says the UIC is the only party that doesn't have a link to gangs. What's the NDM's link to the gang?
Never. We have never been linked to the gangs. Right? The NDM has always existed without any political ties in terms of gang activity. It was very unfortunate that of all the seats that the former NDM first president chose was West Kingston when he went back to the Labour Party, right? But we have that to overcome as a party.
Is it because you don't have a link to a gang where you can't survive? You can't get votes, you can't win a seat?
The gangs in Jamaica are totally connected like a militia to the JLP and the PNP, right? The two of them have their militias, right? And they have names. And their names are well known to you and to your listeners, right? What the NDM will need is support from the business sector. The business sector donate billion, maybe $1.5 billion to the JLP and the PNP. That is why the JLP and PNP exist. they exist because of the business sector. The JLP and the
Not
PNP.
so much the gangs.
No, the gangs are a different thing, man. Joseph Patterson was giving you some of the issues, but they are not, they are a militia, and their work in earnest is called on at election time.
Well, some
Right?
would say that.
So you can assure, I can assure you that when the next election is called, 15 seats out of the 63, you can name them. You don't know that who's going to win those seats. There is no contest in those seats.
Gentlemen, you say you say militia, Mr. Patterson. Some would say that gangs are something also of an overseer body that are used to control politics and the population in post-colonial times. How would you define them? Is it a militia? Is it an overseer body? What is the purpose of these gangs, and how has this evolution come to form and inform Jamaican politics? I'll start with you, Mr. Patterson.
Sure. Just so you know, I'm not hearing any of the other conversation. It's muffled on mine, so I can't hear you clearly. But I just heard your question. And, you know, I think what would be very useful is if we had the two parties that have been very involved with these gangs to tell us really what's going on. You're asking the UIC to tell you something that we have not been involved in. We're giving you second-hand information, what we hear on the ground, what we read in the newspaper like other people. But really and truly, what we need to be doing now is to looking at how do we solve this problem. And the point is that as long as we have persons in power who may be implicated by these gangs, we will never be able to get at the truth. As long as we have a police force which is also corrupted by this political process, we can't get at the truth. So what we need to do is to rid ourselves of those who created the problem and make sure we have a party in power that is free of that legacy and is able to really look at the problem objectively, bring the resources to bear, and start to dismantle the gangs. And I think we should start with the gangs who run our government. Start with the corruption in government, find out where the pockets of corruption are, and we understand them. The Prime Minister's office, which is a very powerful office because of how the system is designed, needs to be dismantled. We need to get that power structure properly devolved throughout the rest of the parliamentary process so that we have proper checks and balances. And with proper checks and balances, we can now get a handle on both the police, the gangs, and then start to create a more secure environment for Jamaicans. But talking around the issues and not bringing to the table those who have 77 years of experience. These two parties have been in power for 77 years. So they fully understand what's wrong with the system. They fully understand the gangs of Jamaica. They fully understand who they are, where they are, and what to do to resolve it. But unfortunately, should they do it, they would implicate themselves.
Do you agree with Mr. Patterson, sir?
Well, that's an argument that the NDM has been enunciating for the last 20 years. That argument is not new, right? What I'm telling you now is that the gangs associated to the JLP and the PNP are much more powerful in numbers than the police force in Jamaica. And the police force in Jamaica, the policy of the police force by the two JLPNP, what I call them, right? They are the ones who have brought the police force to a stage where they are ineffective in dealing with gangs.
So, if I'm understanding you correctly, you're saying that the gangs currently are a militia, a paramilitary force within Jamaican society, correct?
Yes, absolutely correct.
So, what about the fact that we have just passed an anti-gang legislation? What does that say? Does that not say that the government is taking this seriously and moving ahead to dismantle these gangs within Jamaican society?
One gang.
No, it doesn't. What it tells us is that the government is putting another smoke screen before us. They're very good at putting up smoke screens. They put up all kinds of positions and offices and tell you that they're working at the problem. But as you can see, the numbers speak for themselves. The crime situation in Jamaica continues to be out of control. Even in the pandemic, we have a serious problem with crime. Even which lock down innocent citizens, those who are involved in crime are free to roam around, to kill, to steal, and to create all kinds of problems. So it tells us that whatever the government comes with or the opposition, it's nothing new. I think they have exhausted the tools in your toolbox, and all they can do is come with new facades, new smoke screens, while the people of Jamaica suffer. I think it's time for the people of Jamaica to turn the corner and so we have given them 77 years, and they have proven that they do not have the competencies or the heart or the willingness to tackle this. And as a matter of fact, if they were to tackle it, I can assure you that we'd end up with a situation where many of our politicians would have to go to jail. And so they can't really tackle it. So what we the people have to do, we the people have to tackle it. We now have to join and create a new system of governance and create a new environment for our children and our families and make it so that criminals no longer have a space in which to occupy the territory we call Jamaica. And this includes the necessity of looking at our school system, looking at our police system, looking at our economy, but most importantly, changing our system of governance so that we have proper and effective controls to make sure that criminals have no cover, nobody to cover for them, nobody to
We only have so
them.
much time left.
And, yeah.
So
Yes.
he brought the issue of education. What about the issue of unattached youth? I mean, they are, you got 20 seconds, they're being recruited. So what about that issue? I'd like to put it to you.
Yeah, well, there's no unattached youth. It is a fable. It is a facade. There are two main political parties and two main gangs. And the gangs are structured just like the political parties, with branches, with names, and with groups with names. The unattached youths, uneducated youths, the male young man who graduate from school, the Ministry of Education is now telling us almost 60% couldn't pass a subject. Where do they end up? In the garrisons.
Right. Mr. Patterson, your impression on what's happening with unattached youths?
Well, it's very important for us to understand that the family is the heart of any society. The family is the community. And when we break down the family, we break down society. Many of our young men and young women find themselves in homes with single mothers. Many of them find that they're in a school system where when they're finished, they're not able to effectively communicate, analyze, or participate in a civil economy. Why is this? The government is responsible for our education system. The government is responsible for our economic system. The government, therefore, by design, controls the society we have. So after 77 years, we have more broken homes, a more broken economy, and a police service that is a force that actually is the enemy of the people as opposed to being the friend of the people.
All right, Mr. Patterson, Joseph Patterson,
what we have to do
I'm afraid we're completely out of time, Mr. Patterson. We need to thank our guests, Joseph Patterson, the President of the United Independence Congress, and Michael Williams, the Chairman of the National Democratic Movement. When we come back, we'll have lifestyle and entertainment.
So I think that's about it. Yeah, so it looks like in the last part there, the president looks like he couldn't hear them, right? Very clear. But that was a good job. He did a really great job, and I think he's coming on right now. Let me bring him on right now to talk to you guys. Okay, Mr. Patterson, it looks like you were having some trouble hearing them.
Yes, every so often, and most of the time, I couldn't hear a thing that they were saying. You know, and I wrote to them privately to let them know, but it was really bad. I couldn't hear anything that the other guest, the panelist, was saying. I only briefly hear him from time to time, so I couldn't even respond to him. Yeah. And I only heard them when they're asking me a question or a piece of the question. So it was very difficult to participate. but I tried my best to make sure that I could contribute something. I mean, I find it's, I really don't like going on to these programs because you cannot get a proper conversation going, and there's always a problem. I can't hear them, and yeah. But anyways, I'm happy that I was able to get a few points over,
Well,
and hopefully persons could follow.
well, it wasn't very obvious that you couldn't hear, and the fact that you couldn't hear most of the conversation and responded so eloquently, I think a
Yeah.
lot of people in the comment section would be very, very impressed. And I'm seeing in the comment section that they were agreeing with everything that you were saying. They're saying vote blue. They're saying vote UIC. Mr. Patterson has my vote. The UIC has my vote. They are not going to vote for the PNP and the JLP. The NDM leader said a while ago that the structure of the gangs is set up similarly to how the PNP and the JLP is set up, right? And this is the leader of the NDM that was previously intertwined with the JLP through their leader, their previous leader, right?
No, absolutely. Michael should know very well because he has been in this business for a long time. He knows how the system works. And if you notice, he also agreed with my point where I said that we have to deal with the system and look especially at the Prime Minister's office and how much power that office wields. But I find these interviews sometimes they're not focused on solutions. They only want to talk. They really just want an exciting conversation with some highlights and high points. But I want to get into solutions, and I didn't have that tonight. I didn't want to look at how do we fix the problems, in the system.
Mm-hmm. And that's why they don't want you to debate with Andrew Holness, because they know that if the president of the UIC debates with Andrew Holness and debates with the other guy, what's his name, Mark Golden, they are going to look very, very bad. So it is within the best interest of the PNP and the JLP to ensure that the Jamaica Debates Commission does not include the UIC in the local government debates, and that the polling companies do not poll the UIC's popularity in any parish in this country. Because if they do, I guarantee you that the people of Jamaica will begin to hear the truth. They'll begin to know the truth. They'll begin to realize that there's a third option out there. The UIC is a registered political party in Jamaica, registered to contest the local government elections and the general elections, right? The NDP is not a registered political party. So, Mr. Patterson, I saw somebody in the comment section saying that the NDP should just join with the UIC and call it a day. What do you think about that?
Well, yes, you say the NDP, but you mean the NDM.
Sorry, NDM.
Yeah. No worries.
Yeah,
The NDM has not been able to be a registered political party. It's actually not non-existent. It's not really operational. But we have invited them, a number of times to join with us to say, listen, if we want the same thing for Jamaica, if we want a new Jamaica, a safe Jamaica, a clean Jamaica, an orderly Jamaica that really allows everybody to achieve their best potential, join with us now. And they have refused. They have called us and said, let's talk, but then they refuse to join. Yeah. But we remain open to all Jamaicans. So whether you're a member of the NDM, a member of the JLP, the PNP, or any other groups out there, now is the time for us to come together as one Jamaica and get rid of the divisive partisan system. Here's the truth, Devon, to all of you out there. The truth is, we have had 77 years to prove whether or not the two colonial parties or the system that they embrace can work for Jamaica. And it is clear that the two parties nor the system that they have embraced can work for Jamaica. It has failed us on every level. It failed us in education. It failed us in healthcare. It failed us on the economy. It failed us in corruption. It failed us in crime. And it failed us on the family. Every area that you touch, that these two colonial parties touch, every area of life, they either destroy it or they sell it. Yeah. So they either destroy it or they sell it. They destroyed banana. They destroyed coffee. They destroyed coconut. They're killing our land with mining, a non-renewable form of energy. They're killing us with crime. They have built a massive garrison empire that eventually overpowered them. Where, if you notice, in 2010, Bruce Golden was the prime minister
but Dudus was the president.
Ha ha ha. Yeah.
In 2020,
Mhm.
Bruce Golding was the prime minister and
Mhm.
Dudus was the president.
Yep.
But I want you to notice something very important when they captured Dudus, right? They took 1 month to capture Dudus. 1 month, which means if they were to focus their effort, they can solve crime. They took 1 month to capture him because the US government says, time up, we need him now, get him. Now, notice when they captured him, within 4 hours, he deliberately gave himself up to the US by waiving his extradition rights. Why did he do that? He knew that if he stayed within the Jamaican system of justice, they would kill him.
Mhm.
He would never get a chance to be able to say what we would love to hear because they would get rid of him. No, now that he's in the US custody, the US now get all the information that they need out of him. And with that information, they're able now to decide how to deal with our politicians. So for
How to
example,
use the information? Yeah.
they can say, for example, Mr. Prime Minister, do this or else. Mrs. Education Minister, do this or else. Mr. Foreign Affairs and Forest Trade Minister, do this or else. So, because of their history of association with criminals, they are now vulnerable to the control of outside powers who have enough dirt that they can stir up. So, for example, they can withhold your visa if they want you to be compromised and let people have doubts about you. They can say, we're going to withhold your visa, right? Or they can say, we're going to release a little thing. We're going to release a new piece of information. Nothing too clear, just obscure to say politicians are involved in gun trafficking. But don't say who, so that it raises the flag, and then those politicians who know themselves quickly go and pay obeisance to their colonial masters and say, please, massa, don't let them know. I will do whatever you want me to do. So if they say juke all of the Jamaican people, juke them no matter what, they're going to juke them no
They don't have
matter
a
what.
choice.
Yeah, because they can't afford for their dirty laundry to come out.
And
This is why, sorry, one more thing. The only way for us to get ourselves out of this trap is to make sure we do not elect a single member from any of those two parties. We have to give the power to a completely different group that will be able now to stand up for Jamaica, because that group is clean and free and clear of all encumbrances with the criminal elements.
Yes. So basically, the prime minister and all of his friends in government, they're between a rock and the hard stone, right? So
Yes.
they're basically a liability. They are a living, walking liability to the Jamaican people, because the American government have them record, right? The American government knows exactly what's going on, so that they can use this information to bribe these individuals to do what they want to do, and it explains why the PNP that loves to oppose is not
Cannot oppose. They cannot oppose. And guess what?
Explains.
And it's not just America now, China have the information too.
Yeah.
UK have the information.
You remember Jamaican Carlos kept posting, and he's not getting any traction. He's posting and said, UK said that politicians are involved with the importation of illegal guns, and Jamaican Carlos can't get no traction for it. Right? The information is getting shut down.
Yep. Right? Yep. They will never address it. So we have a compromised prime minister. We have a compromised opposition leader. We have a compromised parliament because the two parties. So this is why when people ask me, Mr. Patterson, why don't you just join one of the other two parties and try to fix it from the inside? You're mad. You can't pour new wine into old wineskin. That is a biblical principle that we need to understand. If you pour new wine in an old wineskin, you're going to have serious problem. And guess what? One bad apple spoiled a lot. And in that party, in those two parties, a whole heap of bad apple you're talking about. So when you put one good apple in the midst of 63 bad apples, you know where you get? 63, well, let's say 62. if you have 62 bad apples, you put one in the 62, you're going to get 63 bad apples. I know that I could never join the PNP or the GLP and be able to speak the way I'm speaking now. Couldn't do it.
Yeah, because we know that people join the JLP and people join the PNP. Some of them actually joined with good intentions, you know.
Of
Right?
course, many,
When
yeah.
they joined, they hear things and they find out things, and now they're trapped in a cycle with
Yes.
no way to protect themselves if they were to leave and report on what they heard. So they have no
Yes.
choice but to remain entrapped in the political
Exactly.
corruption. Right?
Exactly.
The UIC, on the other hand, has no involvement with them. We've never been a part of the PNP, never been a part of the JLP. So we have nothing to hide. Nobody can hold anything over us. So when we become government now, we have the resources at our disposal to hold these criminals in government accountable, and the criminals that they're working with accountable. Mr. Patterson, I want to show the people why the UIC is so different from the PNP and the JLP. We are a party of education, and we talk the truth. We talk the plain raw truth, whether people like it or not, right? Because the truth is the truth, and eventually it will come out. So it makes no sense to lie now. It makes no sense to go around it. We're just going to tell you as it is, whether you like it or not. So you realize that the PNP and the JLP have never once mentioned the UIC, even though the UIC is causing so much trouble for them. Because they go out and they say there's some groups doing this and they're pseudo intellectuals and they're talking about the UIC. We know that, but they would never call the UIC by name. Why?
No.
They don't want the Jamaican people to know that a viable third party exists. But I'm going to show you how different the UIC is from these people. Jamaica actually has 4 registered. My camera kind of off. Jamaica has 4 registered political parties. 4. They don't want you to know, right? Because they are afraid. But the UIC is afraid. We don't afraid. We know what the Jamaican people want, and we know what the Jamaican people need. We're not afraid. There's the JLP, the PNP, the 2 original gangs, right? And then there's the UIC, which is a registered political party. And there's Mr. Patterson, what's the name? Is it JPP?
Yes.
And then you have JPP, the Jamaica People's Party.
No,
and
Progressive
Jamaica's Progressive Party, and we are not afraid to call their names, right? Because we support democracy. We support Jamaicans having a choice. When I say we pro-choice, we meant it. We support Jamaicans having a choice, right? So we're not afraid of you going to the JPP's website and say, what is the JPP about, right? And if you support their views, you support their views. If you support the PNP views, it's unfortunate, but you do. If you support the JLP views, it's unfortunate, but you do. But the UIC is bringing something to the Jamaican people that has never existed. It's a flagship program. It's a flagship policy that we're bringing to the Jamaican people. We're bringing for the first time a system where the Queen is no more in our country, where there's no prime minister, where there's no governor general. What we have is a constitutional republic of Jamaica with a duly and directly elected president of Jamaica, with 3 vice presidents directly elected by each county, right? And the UIC released our education plan last night. And that plan is a plan that has never been heard of anywhere in the world, not even in Africa. And our program is an Afrocentric educational program that promises to bring back manufacturing, to bring in innovation, to bring in new environmentalists, new scientists. Jamaica must become self-sufficient. Agriculture, food security, water security, energy security. Jamaica must become secure so we don't rely upon other countries anymore, because these countries now have Andrew Holness in a vice grip and he can't get out. And now he has compromised the entire nation. Mr. Patterson.
Yes.
My rant is over.
No, yes. I mean, sometimes we laugh about these things,
Yeah.
because it's easier than crying, eh?
Yep, very
But
much.
but Jamaica right now is in a perilous position because here we are with a government that we cannot trust. Whatever they tell us, we can't trust them. We can't say you really mean this or you really mean that. We have to keep wondering. So, for example, they've just announced mandatory sixth form. Before sixth form used to be optional. It used to be a case where you finish 5 years of school, you demonstrate that you can manage, to pass five, six, seven, eight, nine, sometimes even 10 and 13 subject. I passed 13 subject in a time when it was hard to pass five. Today, many pass more than that because of the difference in the system. But look at this. Instead of having a system now where a student prove themselves capable of taking on advanced level work, and then they're admitted into an advanced level program to prepare for university, now the Prime Minister is going to change that and make it mandatory. What does mandatory mean? Mandatory means regardless of how you performed in fifth form, you're now going to go to sixth form. So if you performed very poorly, as most do, because most of our children fail at the fifth form level, but by the time we're to take CXC, most of them will not pass 5 subjects. Most of them will not pass math and English together, which are the 2 basics. So we're failing at the high school level, at fifth form level, grade 11 level. We're failing. And the Prime Minister, to solve, I don't know what problem he's solving, but watch what he has done. He has now made it mandatory that all of those students who are failing at grade 11 must now go on to grade 12 and 13 to do what? What is going to happen? What's going to change in grade 12 and 13? So in grade 12 and 13, you're now going to have the same number of teachers, but more students in the system. You're going to have the same dollar resources, but that dollar resource must now stretch for more students in the system. You're going to have the same classroom space, but that space must serve for more students in the system. The end result of that, Devon, is going to be that those who might have done well in sixth form, many of them will now do poorly because their sixth form teachers are not going to be able to keep up with the larger class size, limited resources, and remedial students in the sixth form class, students who are not up to the level but are now in this program, which will undermine them. Why am I bringing this up? I'm bringing this up to show you how the government doesn't care about the people. It's not fixing the problem, of why are our children failing throughout the system. They fail from basic, primary, high school. Why are they failing? Let's fix that. No. But what the Prime Minister did, he saw an opportunity. Here's the opportunity. They've kept our children out of school for 2 years. So now they are backwards by 2 years roughly. He has decimated the economy, killing many jobs and many small businesses. So there are less opportunities for employment now than there were 2 years ago. So to protect himself, by causing these children to stay in school for 2 more years, those numbers will not be added to the unemployment roll. So he will look good or better than he otherwise would because those students will not now be classified as unemployed. They'll be classified as students. Now, their lot would not have improved enough. Their schooling wouldn't have changed. No improvement. They're just going to be in a bad system longer, and they're going to make the sixth form program less effective. So they're going to be in the system longer and the sixth form program less effective, and therefore the failure rate will go higher through this new arrangement. But the Prime Minister would have gotten the benefit of not having the unemployment numbers go higher because of these 2 years of graduates who would not be able to find any work. Now, after 2 years, they will graduate. So they're going to graduate into a bad economy still, and they're going to be poorer still. But the Prime Minister would have had 2 more years of reprieve and get us to forget that he was the one that now pushed the problem further down the road. And he would have gotten the immediate political benefit out of it. These are the kind of things the UIC look at. We analyze problems. We don't just put band-aids on problems. We try to understand what is the root cause, which is why you always hear me say, if we're going to fix crime, we can't ask those who create the problem to fix it because they're going to be implicated in it. In the same way for the education system, if they have failed us with education for 77 years, if you give them 77 more, they're still going to fail us.
You know, as engineers, we learn about root cause analysis. You know, if a product fails, what is the root cause of it, right? And you find that root cause and you employ corrective actions, right? And after you employ corrective action, then you employ preventative actions, right? So we learn a lot about root causes, and the root cause of what's going on right now is bad governance, and that is why the UIC focuses so much on replacing the existing corrupt system of governance. But Mr. Patterson, people don't really know that much about you. People don't know that much about. Well, people probably know a lot about you because you're more online than I am, right? But they don't hear some of our stories. So in regards to education, this is a story that I like to share with people because it's a story where I find myself growing. So I attended the Greater Portmore Primary School. And the honest truth, throughout my entire time at primary school, I feel dunce. I feel dunce. I felt stupid. Like I can't learn anything. Nothing can't stick, right? And then I graduated from Greater Portmore Primary School to Ascot High School in Portmore. So in the 7th grade now, my 7th grade teacher recognized that I just learned differently. So my entire time at primary school, nobody was able to recognize that, right? And I failed throughout the whole primary school. And when I got to 7th grade now, the teacher recognized that I learned different, helped me to recognize that, and then I started to get good grades in 7th grade. And then I left to go on to Kingston College in the 8th grade, where I'm now getting good grades, and I passed Kingston College with 7 CXCs. And the reason why I tell you the story is because we know, the UIC knows that every student learns differently. And the way that they have it right now, you sit down in a chair and looking at the board for much hours a day, with them expecting you to take in all this information, it's nonsense. And then now, you go on to college and they're expecting you to SWAT. They're expecting you to force one whole heap of information in your head, right, to pass the exam. But then after the exam, you forget everything. What was the point? You forget everything. What was the point? What did they really teach me? So I went to the Caribbean Maritime Institute to study, to get my bachelor's degree in industrial engineering, right? I learned a lot, yes. But the things that I learned are the things that I'm really interested in, right? But they don't teach you how to monetize, for example, your degree. Right? They didn't teach me, say, hey, you know what, after you leave school, you can actually start a business and you can go into manufacturing, you can go into design. What they taught is for us to learn how to work for somebody. As a matter of fact, these colleges, the UTech, I don't think UTech is owned by the government. I think it's UA and CMI/CMU. They give you this promise that you come to their school, when you leave, you're going to have a job, everything's gonna be rosy. That's what they make you feel like when you go into college, and that's how I felt. So when I graduated from college, oh man, was I disappointed. I thought I was gonna go leave college and get a job as an engineer and start designing all these nice things. But no, I ended up going to FedEx to work, to drive a FedEx van and deliver all over Kingston. That's how I got to know the garrisons in Kingston really well, because I'm delivering delivering products in Kingston. And I went on to working at the Shipping Association of Jamaica, where I did that work called stevedore lashing. So you see those big ships that come on the port. So I would be on the person on the top of those containers, securing those containers on the ship. Very dangerous work. It's an engineer and ship and top of ship, lashing up shipping, right? Until one day, Mr. Patterson, I'm walking on the ship, and I fell into a hole on the ship, damaged my leg. And I'm like, no, I can't keep doing this. It wasn't the first time I damaged myself. I said, no, I can't keep doing this to myself. So I resigned the work and I left the work with my damaged leg, right? But then I get called now to Kingston Container Terminal Services at the time. So I don't know what it's called right now, but it's right beside Kingston Wharves where I started. I drove trucks there, and I drove what they call a straddle carriers. It picks up containers and bring them to ships. So during that time, I was saying to myself, there's no way I went to college for 4 years to waste my time driving heavy equipment. There's no way. So what I did, I went to UTech and I did a certificate in electrical installation. And then I went to Vector Technology Institute and I did a certificate in solar panel installation and designs. I bought some books and I sat down and I read and I taught myself how to install solar panels. I taught myself how to design it. And then I started my own company and basically like taught myself all of these things. So I ended up becoming a solar panel professional. I kid you not, right? But I didn't learn entrepreneurship. I didn't learn proper money management. I didn't have any of those skills. So of course, yeah, I make a little money selling batteries and doing designs, but it wasn't enough to maintain the business, right? And then I got injured at work again. This time it was my back, right? So my back got injured. I was out of work. I've stopped working for like 3 months, and I got fed up and depressed again. And this is where Jamaicans start to migrate, right? So I said, you know what? I am going to go back to school, but I'm going to go to school in Canada. I didn't intend to stay, and I'm going to tell you why I ended up staying. So I applied to a college, Centennial College in Scarborough, Ontario. The course is Advanced Diploma in Energy Systems Engineering Technology, because I love energy. I love renewable energy. And people always talk about the UIC don't believe in climate change and the UIC don't like environment. But I love renewable energy. I don't think you're going to find anybody that loves it more than me. Love it enough to self-study this program. Right? So I did that program in Canada. And while doing the program, I met my wife. Right? So I always say to her, I always blame her. If it wasn't for you, I would be back in my country right now, because now we have 2 kids here in Canada growing up. Right? But with the information that I have gathered in Jamaica, no less, learning, teaching myself about energy engineering, the day I graduated from Centennial College after 2 years, and that same day I got a job as a what was the position? As an electrical engineering technologist. On the same day I graduated, Mr. Patterson, I got a job as an electrical engineering technologist, and was able for the first time in my life to get quote unquote on-the-job experience. Right? Moving on to different areas and learning things. And
what year was that?
What's that?
What year was that?
So that was that was in 2016.
2016. Okay.
Yeah. So I came to Canada in 2014, right? And I spent 2 years in Centennial College, and graduated in 2016. And that day I got a job as an engineering technologist, right?
Wow.
And I've learned so much in working as an engineer, and I learned so much living in Canada. The information I gained, I'm like, what, Jamaica can be better than what it is right now.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I'm like, Jamaica can be better. Like I'm walking on the streets in Canada and I'm seeing sidewalks and I'm seeing drains. Then when I visit Jamaica, I'm walking in the middle of the road and cars lick me down. Cars try to lick me down. I'm like, where are the sidewalks? Politicians are taking picture of them building roads and not building any sidewalks.
It's funny you say that, Devon, because one of the things that has bothered me is that the Jamaican people do not ask much of their government. We settle for very little because we don't know. We don't know. And it's when people like yourself go abroad and you see how safer a country can be, how better designed, just basic things like even in my constituency here in Northeast St. Elizabeth, the government doesn't care about pedestrians. They have roads where all you have is the road and then bush on either side, or a fence on either side. So you have to negotiate with the vehicles on the road. So you might be walking on around a corner, you can just swing around the corner, and there you are. You're in the road because there's nowhere for you to go unless you're going to chuck over into the bush. So you see, when I lived in Canada, what I saw was a government that respected its people. Every morning, the road was cleaned before I went out to go to work. If I go out early, because some mornings I would leave home very early, because I used to like to get to work very early and get stuff done. And I would leave my home sometime, 5 in the morning, 5:30, because the kind of job I had, I was an accountant, and sometimes I want to get the reports out, sometime on a month end. And I would go out there and I see people cleaning the road already. They drive little machines and pick up all the stuff. The road is clean. Then you go, the sidewalks, the design of the sidewalks tells you that they care about the people. You have the sidewalk will sink downward where the crosswalk is, so a person on a wheelchair can just easily glide up, or a little old man or old lady going with their walker can get across. The sidewalks are wide enough. They'll put space in for bike lanes for people who are riding bicycles so they don't have to interact directly with regular traffic. Little things like that. Here in Jamaica, in my constituency of Northeast St. Elizabeth, which has been held by one party for nearly 30 years and by both parties for over 70 years, right? And to this day, the people in my constituency do not have fixed addresses. They don't have an address that says Joseph Patterson lives at 16 Meadowvale Close in the area called whatever, and so on. Instead, you have to go to the post office to pick up your mail, and you can't ask for parcel delivery because the guy who's coming to you don't know exactly where you are. He can't pick you up on a GPS and say, on the MapQuest or whatever, and find exactly where you are, unless you send him a pin and he tries to navigate the pin and find you. Now, of course, that's not the case for people living in Kingston and in some other areas. But why is it not the case for all Jamaicans across the entire country after 77 years of these two parties? Why don't we all have fixed address? Why doesn't all streets have sidewalks? Why doesn't all streets have proper street lights so that when you're coming home from work late at night, you don't come off of the taxi and have to look everywhere, but you can't even see properly with your flashlight because it's dark? Again, that's not the case for some areas in Kingston and other areas around the country. But many communities across the country are still living in the dark ages. There are still communities where people have to go to a standpipe to get water. Right here in Northeast St. Elizabeth, where I am a citizen, a resident, you have people still going to standpipe. There's a communal pipe, and they go there because they don't have running water to their homes. There are still people walking down hills to get water and put on their head and take that up the hill to their homes. Today, in this country, Jamaica, which is just a stone throw away from the richest nation on earth, and we do not have a well-developed... Jamaica is not Kingston. Jamaica is everywhere. Jamaica is St. Elizabeth. Jamaica is Clarendon. Jamaica is St. Thomas. Jamaica is St. Mary. Jamaica is Hanover. Jamaica is Westmoreland. Jamaica is Trelawney. Jamaica is St. Anne. All of these parts are Jamaica. And that is why the UIC is committed to treating all parishes equally, treating all Jamaicans equally, treating all communities equally, treating all schools equally, treating everybody as sovereign citizens worthy of being respected, protected, and served by their government. But I digress. Tell me some more about your story, Mr. Thompson.
So before that, I want people to know that there are lots of Jamaicans like me in the diaspora that have gained immense knowledge that they want to bring back to Jamaica. And they're in the UIC right now, crunching away, working away. We have people working on the country's budget, a way to ensure that the UIC's tax plan is properly implemented over time, of course. We have people working on education. We have people working on energy, and that's part of my portfolio as well. Listen, when I come back to Jamaica, I want to bring all of my knowledge, all the knowledge I gain here, everything that I see here. I want to bring it to Jamaica. So I'm also a project manager. So my background is engineering, industrial engineering, energy engineering, electrical engineering. That's my background. But I also do project management, and I know how to do project planning. And that's one of the things that is lacking in Jamaica. You don't have somebody. I can't show you this map because I have some names on it. I almost breached some confidentiality thing with the UIC just now. I was going to show you a map of Jamaica that I have mapping things out. So you don't have somebody looking at the map of Jamaica, right? And then it's as simple as this. Jamaica is a big place, right? It's not a small place. It's as simple as creating a government application, right? Software. And you say to the citizens, hey, listen, right now the government doesn't have the resources to go to every nook and corner of society, right? So we're going to create this wonderful, amazing application. It's a project planning application, right? And then citizens know from each part of society, let's say that you're in Portmore, right? And then your gully keeps overflowing. Something is wrong. You snap a picture, upload it to the software, it goes straight to your MP, right? And your MP flags it and says, oh, wow, something is wrong here, right? And the MP now sends it up the chain to the responsible department. In the UIC, it would be called the Ministry of Public Works and Engineering. That's what our ministry would be called. Sends that to the ministry, right? And the ministry says, okay, we need to get this started out, right? We don't just send a contractor there. That's not how it works. You have to send somebody there to assess the issue, right? It is a hazard. Your water flowing out of your gully, it is a hazard. It can create problems. You send somebody there to assess the situation, right? Make the area safe, right? Do reporting, interview people there, after that, then you submit that report to the ministry, and then you can get an engineer now to come in to identify what the root causes are of the gully flooding, of the road at Marcus Garvey flooding, of this happening, of mosquito biting and killing. You have to find what the root cause is, right? After you find the root cause now, the engineer designs something now to solve that root cause, right? As a matter of fact, the engineer is not a single source contract. You have to do public procurement, transparent public procurement, right? Not single sourcing. So Jamaicans now have the ability to take part in a competitive process, right? Then once the engineer completes his design, then you send out another public procurement process to hire a contractor to implement the design. Jamaica needs a system where engineers are accessed and engineers are mobilized to solve the island's problem, right?
Mr. Thompson,
it's very easy to do. I don't understand why they make it so difficult.
Well, that is why we need the LEAP program, the education program from the UIC, which will leap Jamaica forward. Learning, advancement, learning enrichment, advanced program. Now, here's a key thing that I've noticed just right across Jamaica, but I'm going to give you one example. There's a road called the Elam to Bogue Road, which runs past Mr. Taylor's dairy farm up the road there. This road, earlier in the year, had a pothole about this size after the rain fell. Within about 2 to 3 weeks, it got bigger, about twice the size. Right now, it has taken up 3/4 of the road. Now, in a UIC Jamaica, you have a road maintenance program, and it's so much better if you catch these small breaks and fix them right away than leave them for months and months and months until they become craters, where now every car has to slow down tremendously and drive up on the banking and try to get around this hole. and it's getting deeper and wider and deeper from a small hole about this size. Now 3/4 of the road is like that. Now, if you also drive by like when you're going through Clarendon there towards Kingston, and you turn off on a road there nearby Scott's Path, the exact same thing. Small hole. I drive past there every now and again, and every time I drive by, it's bigger. It is so big and deep now that all cars have to take one side, and now accidents are happening between them because they're trying to, both of them now. So if you're driving on the left hand side to go one way, you have to skip over on your right, and the person on the other hand is in his right lane. He's trying to stay there, and now you have this bottleneck. This also builds up the traffic. This is happening right across Jamaica. You also have some roads, key roads, like the road at the Winston Jones Highway coming from the Kingston side of Manchester to the Poro side, and you're going around that road. Now, this is a major road that you're driving at normal speed, trying to get to where you're going. Just where there is no light. So there's no light at that spot. There's no light. There's a hole that's this deep. Okay? You say about 2 feet deep and about maybe 2.5 feet wide. There's no street light there. So you're driving, maybe you're new, or maybe you're just coming home from foreign, you don't know, or maybe that's not your regular route, and you're driving, and then you suddenly hear bang.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're unlucky, as I've seen, some people are, your thing break and you stop on the side, you obstruct traffic, you know, of an expensive repair. And this is the case for countless drivers. Now, here's this. You're paying taxes twice. If you fail to get your vehicle registration, if you fail to get your fitness, if you fail to pay insurance, if you fail to have a current driver's license, all of which you have to pay money to the government for, if you fail to have any of this, a police officer can lock you up and they can confiscate your vehicle. And you spend time in court and all kind of stuff, which adds to the cost. But you have nobody that you can hold accountable for these reckless mismanagement of our roads, which are causing countless accidents, lots of deaths, which are not properly recorded. If they were to track traffic fatalities the way they track COVID and look for all the incidents where bad roads has caused all of these accidents, and have also, if they add up the cost for replacing tires, the cost for replacing your front end and your axles, the cost of time that you lose when your vehicle damage and you have to wait to be towed away and so on. We don't have a government that cares about any of these things. They just leave it and let the people suffer. But they're always willing to fine you and tax you and assault you and all kind of things when they think they have the upper hand. Whatever we say, do it, or we're going to make you suffer. But you, the citizens, have no recourse. This has to stop.
Yeah, and a lot of this, to be honest, is really, really common sense. So with the road issue, you need a road inventory system, right? So you fix a road, you log it. Every single product has a life cycle, right? Your phones have a life cycle, right? So if you know that the life cycle, for example, let's say that you get an engineer, a civil engineer, to design a road infrastructure, right? Engineer, of course, is going to recommend a manufacturer for the road, right? And then you get the contractor to come on board. The manufacturer has to give some kind of warranty, right? And the contractor themselves have to give some kind of warranty, right? And with the material that you're using, you must know what the life cycle is of that material. So if the life cycle of the road that you just built is 10 years or 20 years, right? You know that you should have an inventory system that says, okay, the road over here, so in St. Elizabeth, is approaching the end of the life cycle. That means you need to send somebody out there to check the condition of the road, right? And if you find that the condition of the road is bad or is starting to crack, then you take corrective action, fix it or replace it. Because sometimes the manufacturer said the life cycle is 10 years, but when I check it out, the product is so good, it lasts for 30 years. And if it lasts for 30 years, you don't need to replace it after 10 years, right? You just continue to check periodically after the 10 years. Instead of checking every 10 years, you check every 3 years or every 4 years, every 5 years. As time goes by, you check more and more and more often to ensure that you have corrective measures installed and the preventative measures installed. It's really common sense.
Yeah, but Devon, the
yeah.
issue, what you're saying, is what any wise, accountable government would do. But the Jamaican government is not accountable to anybody. They can do anything they want to the Jamaican people, and they're not accountable to us. So for example, if they simply disregard us, they will be out of office after 1 or 2 terms, and then they'll be back in office afterwards. They know that, okay, PNP get a turn, JLP get a turn, PNP get a turn. So they don't have to worry too much, and they know that the other one going to do the same thing. Why do they do the same thing? They do the same thing because when they're in power, their goal is to enrich a few at the expense of the many. So they're not interested in what you're talking about. They can't afford to set up the kind of system of proper planning and proper maintenance, because then they'll be using the people's money for what they're supposed to use it for. So they want a system where they can continue to skim off our money. They can continue to rob us. And how do they rob us? Many boards. We have so many boards. If all you needed was boards to solve problems, all of our problems would be solved, because they have many, many, many boards. And the people on these boards are political appointees. They're there to serve the interest of their party so that they can continue to benefit from that arrangement. Yeah, I think you want to say something. Go ahead.
I want to run a test, Mr. Patterson, about that board thing. I'm going to ask our viewers, our listeners and viewers here to comment in the comment section. Were you aware that Air Jamaica still exists? And are you aware that there's a board for Air Jamaica still collecting tax money? I want you to leave your comment in the comment section. Say yes or no. So were you aware that Air Jamaica still exists, that there's a board of directors for Air Jamaica, and it's still collecting Jamaican tax dollars? Were you aware? Malcolm X says no. Oswald says no. He says no. You see, a lot of people don't know these things. I went on the government's website, the Ministry of Finance, and I looked at all the public boards. I made sure to look because I was investigating, right? We know they're investigating us. We're investigating them too. So we're investigating the government. And I saw so much things. I'm like, do the Jamaican people know that these things exist? And then you have the Jamaica Tire Company. Why is the government of Jamaica operating a tire company? People, we have to think about these things. These things are the sources of corruption in our government. And then when people look at the UIC and say, UIC, how are you going to fund the government without property taxes? Well, all we have to do is get rid of these unnecessary words, get rid of these Air Jamaica, get rid of these organizations that are costing us billions. How much did the JUTC cost the people every year? Corruption costs Jamaicans $750 million every single year. Times that by the last 20 years, and how much money you get. And tell me, if we don't have a good, if we have a good operating government, if we have a good system of checks and balances that's not robbing the people, tell me that we can't get rid of property taxes in this country.
So we have taken the time of building a new budget, a UIC budget based on the 10% income tax and the 10% GCT. Because when the UIC becomes government, the government will only cost you 10% of your income in taxes, in direct upfront taxes, and 10% on purchases that you make. Okay? The current government takes more. Watch this carefully. when we did the budget for the UIC, the real cost of the government, if the government was being run properly, would only cost us 20% of what it costs now if it was run properly. 20% of what it costs now. But we have been used by a government to fund corruption. Your taxes that you're paying is a tax to fund corruption. Most of your taxes is funding corruption. Now, it doesn't mean that all of the corruption is something that you can easily point to as illegal. Because if they create a board and create a position on that board and assign a salary or a fee to that position and pay it, it will be considered legitimate on our books and not be flagged as a problem by the Auditor General. But in reality, if it's a position which is not adding value to the Jamaican people and not solving a problem for the Jamaican people, then that is a waste of taxpayers' money and an affront to you as a Jamaican citizen. I see Devon post something here says
I just googled this to find out how much the JUTC is costing Jamaican people.
$29.8 billion.
Billion dollars.
And you still don't have an all-island, well-managed and well-maintained public transportation system.
Mm-hmm.
So after all of this money, and this money could give you a decent system like the one the UIC proposed, which is a rail network across the country from St. Thomas and Portland all the way over to Hanover and St. James, right across the country, and then going north to south in the each of the adjacent parishes, right? So that you have high-speed rail service, so you can live in Montego Bay and work in St. Thomas and go back and forth every day at a reasonable time and not spending hours and hours in commute. Okay? Watch me now. You could also have a ferry service to help you to do coastal travel very quickly. Let's say, for example, from a port in Kingston to a port in Negril, or a port in St. James, or a port in Trelawney, or a port in St. Anne, for example. Quickly, skip around the country and get you to where you want to go. You could have a bus service. I was in the UK the other day, Sir Thompson, and it was such a pleasure. I decided to take the tube, they call it, the tube, the subway. I could look on my phone and see when is the next subway coming, what time, and so I could plan my entire trip. I know how long it's going to take me from Watford to get down to London and to get to the museum at London. I could plan my entire time from my house, from my doorstep where I was, and plan it. So I want to get to the museum at 1:00, and now it is 9:00 in the morning. I got up, I had my breakfast and stuff, and I go on my phone and put it in, and it tells me, okay, you'll have a train at this time. It will get to this point at this time. You'll have a bus at this point. You can take that bus from here to this point. And then, by the way, the museum is just 2 minutes walk from that bus stop to get there. And it shows me that on my phone, because they have a reliable connection from the train to the above ground train to the underground subway to the bus to there. Now, there's no reason why Jamaica shouldn't be there already. You know why? Because long before some of these countries even have a railway system, we had one in Jamaica.
Yep.
Did you know that?
And light. Right? We had a railway system and we have light.
Exactly. Yeah. And so we have not, our leaders who took over from our colonial masters, they have hardly improved a lot of the Jamaican people since they have taken over from those who were our direct colonial masters. And so you know for sure that they don't care about the Jamaican people. We can have a better transportation system. We can have an effective education system. We can have a truly free market and fair market economic system. We can have a Jamaica that is safe, that is clean, that is orderly. We can have a Jamaica that we all can be proud of. But we can't have it by expecting those who brought us to this low level to take us out of it. But now we've come to the end of our session, Devon.
Yes,
It's now
definitely.
1:24, and our wives are going to divorce us if we continue to do this.
Yeah.
So,
And my two sons have come down here multiple times looking at me like, what is
yeah, what you're doing, you know? So let me say thanks to everybody who has been on tonight. Thank you for spending the time with us. Thank you for sharing with us your thoughts, listening to our ramblings, and giving us your support. But let me ask all of you to do us a favor. Get all of your friends and families to subscribe to UIC Liberty TV. This is where you'll get the true goods. You won't get it on mainstream media because they won't give us the time. They won't give us the time, right? So let's make sure that we share with our friends and family, get everybody on UIC Liberty TV, and let's continue to build our connection with each other, and let's talk to each other and work together. We're going to win the local government election, not because we have the money that the others have, not because we will get any TV or radio coverage like the others will. We're going to win this local government election because of you. You, your family, your friends, your co-worker, the stranger, the taxi driver, the handcart pusher. You will talk to people and you will pull us together and say, let's vote UIC for a real, new, and better Jamaica. Thank you very much. Big up and good night.